You can turn on the air conditioning there, but you have to take it away from heat. Bring your glasses so you can see what you're doing. Hi, folks. As you can see, I am here. Unfortunately, Lisa was called away at the last minute, and I don't think she'll be able to be back. She had to take care of a relatively small family emergency. Hopefully, it was relatively small. So I'm going to do some sharing on Facebook, and I'll be with you in a moment, or 2 or 3 or 4. You know the drill. You know the drill.
I'm not sure I did that right.
Well, you turned on something.
Okay. We'll wait and see what happens because I have no idea what I was doing.
So again, folks, okay, so Elvira just told me that Biden was caca.
What is it with the Democrats caving in all the time? It gets them nowhere.
Well, the problem is not that the Democrats cave in all the time. The problem is the progressives cave in all the time. There we go. Hello, Kay. How you doing? Okay, folks. I am starting up. Lana says fast hello and sharing on Twitter. We'll join a bit later. And Holly says hello. Elvira says the reconciliation bill is junk. Yes, it is. And Dolores says good evening, everyone. And she shares on Twitter. She shares on Facebook. I'm sure she'll probably share on YouTube as well, but not yet. Holly Horn says we'll join you soon. Okay, Carmen says, hi, friends and guests, about to share and stuff. Elvira says Biden is caca. He told progressives to accept it and vote for it before he left for Europe. Well, he might have told them, but they will do what they decide to do. Now, let's hope they have the guts to decide what they ought to decide. But the situation tonight is that Lisa was called away at the very, very last minute. Her son had what looks like a minor accident, and she has to help with that. And there's Dolores sharing on Twitter. Hi, Dolores. Thank you very much for sharing on Twitter as well. Anyway, I, of course, am perfectly capable of handling tonight's doings by myself, since it's on this political movement. But I have sent the guest link to Shane Coughlin in case he would like to join, because he was going to moderate anyway, because as you know, we've been having some problems of late with people who are trolls. Carmen says, ooh la la, that red beret is dapper on you, Joe. Hi, Bonnie, do you have your beret on too? So you guys can twin?
No, sorry.
And Holly Horn says, hello, Dolores. And Carmen says, hi, Holly. Hi, Dolores. Okay. So here's the way I see things, considering the moment that we're in. First, I go back to January 3rd. The CPC had a chance to get rid of Pelosi on January 3rd. If Jayapal had wanted to do so, she had more than enough firepower to do so. Even the squad itself had the firepower to do so. Before January 3rd, I showed in a graphic I did that there was no possible way for Kevin McCarthy to win, and also there was no possible way for Pelosi to win if even the squad would stick together and vote against her. She could have been defeated round after round after round till she finally dropped out. Now, what are the consequences of her not dropping out? Well, the first consequence was when the original reconciliation bill was coming up for a vote, in March, and Schumer took the $15 an hour out of that bill. Nancy Pelosi failed to lay down the law to Schumer while that was happening and to say, look, if the $15 an hour is out of that bill, I know my progressives are not going to vote for the bill it's not going to get through. It can't get through without their support, and it cannot get through. It therefore cannot get through as a reconciliation bill because we need every vote. So, not having somebody else in there at that point cost a floor vote on the $15 an hour piece in the Senate. Had there been a direct floor vote on that, where the whole American Rescue Plan was hinging on the Democrats in the Senate sticking together to get it through, there would have been so much pressure on Manchin and Sinema and the others who voted against Bernie's amendment to get it back in that I don't think they would have dared, to have voted against it, and Biden could have put tremendous pressure on them at that time to force them to vote for it. Now, of course, the parliamentarian said that it shouldn't be in there, but really, that was up to Biden and his vice president. That is, it would have been up to Kamala Harris to rule on the finding of the parliamentarian, and she could have simply said, sorry, CBO says that the $15 an hour is going to have a budgetary impact, so I rule against the point of order, citing the finding of the parliamentarian, and so it goes through. Also, in addition, what Nancy Pelosi could have done when Schumer was contemplating taking it out of the bill, all he had to say was, Chuck, fire the parliamentarian right now. So her finding, any possible finding she would give against it, does not matter. Make the position vacant so that the Republicans have to raise it as a point of order, and Harris has to come in and go for or against. At that point, Biden would have been the one on the hook to approve of the $15 an hour. And if he had done that, then the vote would have come up with the president behind it, publicly behind it. The 8 people who voted against it when it was to come in as an amendment wouldn't have been able to do that. The $15 an hour would have passed. That would immediately have improved Biden's position at the time, made him much more popular and more powerful in relation to Sinema and to Manchin. Next, Biden then pulls stuff about how he wants to do bipartisan with the Republicans because he believes in bipartisanship. He believes in the institutions of the Senate, blah, blah, blah. At that point, it was up to the House Speaker, who, as we know, was Pelosi, and would not do that. It was up to the House Speaker to say to Biden, look, the American people need a good bill here. We have no time and no ability to pull any Republicans to our side for the social infrastructure part of this bill. And it's going to take months and months to negotiate with the Republicans to get any bipartisan support, and we're never going to get it for the whole thing. We could only get it for the infrastructure part. So who cares about it? Let them do what they're going to do. We have the votes to pass it over their objections. And she should have said, I'm sorry, we have no time to play any bipartisan games. What we need to do is to pass the second reconciliation bill immediately. We need to have it done by June. We need to have it done by June. If she had taken a strong position there and she had said, 6 million is on the table for this. We progressives in the House are going for 6 million, and don't say a word about this or we're going to raise it to 10. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said 6 million. I should have said 6 trillion. Big mistake. Anyway. Oh, that's another thing. Carmen brings up the point. If the $15 an hour would have passed, perhaps folks would have forgiven being cheated out of $600 in the recovery plan. Carmen is quite right about that. There was no reason, I'm going to talk about this for a minute. There was no logical reason for Biden to only support $1,400 as part of the American Rescue Plan. He had promised $2,000. Everybody heard it in Georgia. Then there was a bunch of baloney sausage about it, about how 600 plus 1,400 is 2,000. 600 was Trump's. We heard what Biden said in Georgia. He said $2,000 checks were going to be sent to people. That's 2,000. That's not 600 plus 1,400. That's 2,000 plus the 600 coming from Trump. Everybody felt let down by that. It was stupid politics, and there was no sound economic reason for it, and we will get into that very soon. We'll get into that very, very soon. But the basic point is, that was a mistake in the American Rescue Plan. Had there been a different speaker in there, and had the speaker any political smarts at all, she would have told Biden, you can't go for $1,400 on this. We're going to pass out a $2,000 American Rescue Plan bill. And you better get behind it because you said 2,000. If you send only 1,400 now, you're going to lose some support. You got to lose some support. Why do you want to lose any support? It's the easiest thing to do. Everybody's supporting this American Rescue Plan. If someone from the House had made that argument, Biden would have gone for it. You know he would have gone for it. He's not that strong. He didn't have any principled reason for going to 1,400. Somebody whispering in his ear that would be better. Maybe it was Larry Summers. That would be better for the budget. That would be better for fiscal responsibility. We'll get to Biden and fiscal responsibility just a little while later. But for now, Carmen is absolutely right, and thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about it, Carmen. I should have brought it up. I meant to bring it up. Thank you for reminding me. Anyway, once that bill was passed with the 2,000 and with the $15 an hour in it, then the Speaker of the House should have turned to the next reconciliation bill. And she should have told Biden in no uncertain terms, that is going to be the House's bill. We're going to present to you a $6 trillion bill. We're not going to present anything less than that. That's already a compromise because our people want 10 trillion. They don't want 6 trillion. They want 10 trillion. And that speaker could have said, I'm having a tough time holding them back. 6 trillion is the compromise. We're passing that reconciliation bill out of the House. John Yarmouth is going to come to agreement with Bernie Sanders on the $6 trillion bill. That's what is coming out of the House. And Biden could have said, well, Manchin and Sinema are never going to vote for that. And the new speaker should have said, in response to that, right at that time, Well, we're going to send it to you. That way, Chuck Schumer, we're going to send it to you. And when we send it to you, we insist you put it on the floor as is. If they don't like it, let them vote it down. And then she could have said to Schumer, and when they vote it down, if they have the guts to do so, you go back and 1 week later you put it on the floor again and let them vote it down. And you keep doing it. Every week, you keep putting it on the floor of the Senate as a reconciliation bill. And so, each time they vote it down, you run ads in their state about what they voted down. You do that for 6 weeks running, and then see if they continue to vote it down. But the most important thing for Biden, for the new speaker, and for Schumer to have done at that point was to give every indication that they were going to power this through on the basis of a partisan Democratic bill that was for the people. That was for the people. That is what they should have done. It was a huge mistake for the progressives in the House not to pressure that way. It was a huge mistake for Bernie Sanders to accept this lesser framework that they were bargaining around. But let's forget that for the moment. Let's go to what actually happened, and let's consider that sometime in the June-July period, the deal was made that they were going to split into two bills. Shane is joining me right now.
Hi,
Hello,
Joe.
Shane. How are you?
Good. Sorry I was late to the stream. I was meeting with our YouTube channel guy trying to improve the channel.
Okay, that's fine. But, of course, we're not going to talk about that. What I'm going through
No, of course.
is the background to where we're coming to today. And where I am now is I'm in the June-July period.
Okay.
And I'm talking about when the decision was made to split the infrastructure bill, the American Jobs Plan, basically, and the American Family Plan into two bills. One that became the Build Back Better piece of nonsense, and the other that became the infrastructure, the BIF piece of nonsense, the basic infrastructure bill.
Right.
Okay. So the way they reasoned was that they could have some degree of bipartisanship, which, as you know, already was bullshit. Biden should never have been trying to do that. He made the very mistake, same kinds of mistakes Obama made in 2009, 2010. Okay, and now I'm going to refer to them as mistakes, but I will admit that it may all have been deliberate, because maybe the Democrats didn't want to pass anything. But I don't want to debate this here. From a progressive point of view, the point is that if they wanted to pass a progressive agenda that would have been popular with the people, that would have strengthened their political hand and increased their chances to win in 2022, the point is that the right move for them to make was to have said no bipartisan negotiations. If the Republicans want to join us in these bills, they are free to join us, but they can make that decision on a one-by-one basis. If they want to completely vote against these bills, that's their business between them and their constituents. And we're going to put these bills on the floor, and they'll have a chance to vote for it or vote against it. That's what is going to happen.
Definitely.
So that's what Biden should have done, but he didn't do it. Instead, he fooled around and he did the bipartisan thing, and he wasted months and months of negotiation. At that point, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, or if the progressives had done the right thing and gotten rid of her on January 3rd, the new Speaker should at that time have said to Biden, okay, Mr. President, we don't agree with your bipartisan stuff with that particular strategy. What we're doing is we're going to craft a deal between John Yarmouth, and Bernie, and then we're going to present a reconciliation bill to the Senate. If you want, we will split these bills into two. We will have a social, family, jobs, infrastructure bill, and we will have also an infrastructure bill that the House is for. That's not a bipartisan infrastructure bill. One the House wants.
Yes.
We're going to put that up, and we're going to have the Senate vote on that. And by the way, we're going to tell Chuck, we're going to be clear with Chuck at this point that we want him to put our bill on the floor in the Senate directly for an up or down vote. And if the conservative Dems don't like it, they'll be free to vote against it.
Exactly.
And if they want to vote against it, we're going to run ads against them. And we are going to keep running ads against them every week. Every time they vote against the basic infrastructure bill, and every time they vote against the jobs and family infrastructure bill, with, by the way, the climate emergency stuff in it, we then are going to run an ad against them as well. And both of these bills are going to be presented to them week after week after week with ads accompanying it. They voted against it again. They voted against it again. They voted against it again. That's the strategy they should have followed to win and to get this passed. But here we are. We have a situation where the progressives, did not, specify. Okay, the Lana Delos here now is.
I'm looking at that. I want to know, do you think I should time her out?
Time her out. She's a troll. She's absolutely a troll. That is not Lana Del. Absolutely.
No, I'll time her out.
Right. But time her out.
300 seconds, she can't say anything.
Yeah, she's a fake. So, anyway. Where was I? Okay, but that is not the way things went.
No.
Biden proceeded to allow Manchin and Sinema and the other fools to work hard on a bipartisan infrastructure bill. 50% of it was a giveaway to the interests. There was a terrible result.
Yes.
Okay, and a deal was made that everybody would vote for that if a progressive family infrastructure bill.
I'm going to turn off my phone. Go ahead. Yeah.
Was passed as the BBC Act. But first, I'm sorry, the Build Back Better Act, the BBBA.
Yeah, Build Back Better, BBBA, yeah.
Yeah, BBBA. Okay, so we know that deal was made. We know that there was a deal for 3.5T that was specified. Okay, now remember, based on what I said previously, they should have come in with a 6T deal coming out of the House in the first place.
I would have even gone higher.
Never,
I would have gone to 10 or 11. Are you familiar with what they used to do on? Now, this analogy will make sense on Saturday Night Live. In order to get the skits they wanted to get, they would show them something that was so appalling, so horrible. The writers that would never want to be seen on TV.
Yes, I am familiar with that. I'm very familiar with that.
Then they would show them a skit that's pretty outrageous, but in comparison to the other skit, it's not so outrageous. So if you come at them with a $30 trillion bill or a $15 trillion bill, and then you say, come at them with the $30 trillion bill, and then show them the $10 or $15 trillion bill, they'll like the 10 or 15 better.
Yes, and I think that's always a good thing to do. But remember, in this particular situation, they had Biden and Harris on the side. So what I said before you joined was that what the new speaker should have done was to come in with a $6 trillion bill, but basically because there was a chance that Biden would fold to a $6 trillion bill, but not to a $10 trillion bill. And we'll get into the reasons for that, okay, in just a minute. So they might have at least had Biden stay neutral with a $6 trillion bill, but not with a $10 trillion bill. So that's why I was advocating for a $6 trillion bill.
I understand that. Should I time out the Lana Del in the chat? Another one?
I think that's probably another one. There was a Lana Del who came in right at the beginning.
Okay.
At the very, very beginning.
Yeah, I see it. Fast hello and sharing on Twitter. We'll join a bit later.
Right.
This one is saying, can I stay in your attic? And asking Holly to call you.
That is not Lana Del. The color is wrong. Look at the color of the person who first came in.
Lana has an orange. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So that's the way to distinguish her. Okay, that's a better way to distinguish her. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so if they had come in with the $6 trillion bill, then the new speaker could have said, look, my people want 10 trillion. I'm holding them back. 6 trillion is a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
We're not compromising any further. We're passing a $6 trillion reconciliation bill out of the House. Bernie's in support of it. He's agreed with John Yarmouth that we're going to do a $6 trillion bill. So that's the bill that's being passed out of here, and it's going to you, and you better, Chuck Schumer, put it on the floor without change.
Exactly.
If you try to pass something else out of the House and you kick it back here, what's going to happen is we're going to just kick it back. Exactly the same bill. There's not going to be any negotiation on this. This is a way that it's going to go. Okay, that's what they should have done. They didn't do that. What they did instead was they agreed on the split into two bills, and they also agreed on a 3.5T total. Now, at that point, what the progressives should have done is come out with a 3.5T reconciliation bill with written language, with language written in the House. And they should have passed that out of the House as is. And again, they should have said to Chuck Schumer at that point, look, we have finalized the language on this bill. We are not ready to negotiate on it. In the Senate, you have to put this bill on the floor.
Exactly.
And here's the strategy we recommend. You put it on, and by the way, this bill could have been ready by the early part of July with the language.
Mm-hmm. This is the same strategy as, I would say, DSA and Jimmy Dore wanted to do a forced vote. You put the bill on the floor, and you see where everybody stands. You see, here's a bill that helps all the working people in the country.
No. This is not to see where everybody stands. That's not the point of this bill.
No, I'm saying you will see.
And Jimmy Dore's strategy on January 3rd was for the birds. It was shit. He should have gone to replace Nancy Pelosi right up front, chopped off the head.
No, I'm saying the infrastructure bill, if it's on the floor, you do see where everybody stands on helping everybody.
But the purpose is not to see where everybody stands.
No, but the thing is, they're not going
the purpose is to put it on the floor, get them on record, and do it week after week after week in a coercion campaign which runs ads in their states.
Well, yeah, then you see, if Joe Manchin is not going to be willing to vote for it, you run a lot of ads against him. His election, I think, is coming up pretty soon, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's coming up in 2024.
Not Manchin, the other senator then maybe in West Virginia is coming up.
No.
No.
Oh, the other senator in West Virginia? No, she just
got in.
Yeah, she just got in 2020. She's not up till 2026.
No. Somebody's up. Some of them may be up for
Kirsten Sinema is
That's who I was thinking of.
In 2024. She and Manchin were elected in 2018 at the same time. She was elected for the first time. Manchin was reelected in 2018. Okay? So both are due in 2024. You can't get them until 2024.
No, you can't. But if they want to be the ones who hold up this bill for 4 years, you can run a lot of bad ads against them in 24.
You can run a lot of bad ads against them, but also the other point is that there's a possibility it may not be constitutional, but there's a possibility that the Arizona state constitution specifies for all officers of the state, including senators and congresspeople,
yes,
to face a recall if the voters of the state want them to be recalled. So in Sinema's case, there's a chance for a recall to be mounted against her. Now, I don't know if such a recall would stand in the Supreme Court or not stand, okay, in the Supreme Court, but that would have still been a very, very good thing to do. And the reason why it would have been a good thing to do is because it would have put considerable pressure on Sinema, forced her to run in the recall campaign.
The same thing they did in California.
Same thing they did in California, but it would have been a tremendous hassle for her. And if she lost that recall by a big amount, it would really have attacked her prestige, her status, her psyche. It would really have shaken her.
Oh, how do you so how would you go about doing the recall? Who would have to call for that recall? Do you know?
Yeah, you have to get on, there has to be a petition for the recall, and you have to get a certain number of signatures. I don't know what it is, in Arizona, but it works in roughly the same way that it works in California. Okay, except I don't think it works in the stupid way that it requires the person who's in office to actually have a majority of the votes. I think if that person has a plurality of the votes, they still stay in the Senate, in that instance.
So someone could, in theory, let's say Kirsten Sinema continues to vote down the bill, even though they keep putting it up. A group of progressives could go out, get petitions signed, and force her to be running a recall election to get rid of her. You don't have to wait till 24.
Right. You would not necessarily have to wait till 2024. You could pressure on her right now in 2022, which might very well change her position, change her situation. Okay, but I'm actually really counting on that. I think that the key thing at this point is to get a bill out of the House that fulfills the reconciliation rules that were passed with the 3.5T cap. Okay? At that point, if that goes on the floor of the Senate, and if the Democratic Party comes together and runs ads against those two each week, that stands a very good chance of those two folding, because their names would be mud in both of those states.
Absolutely. Do you think it's possible? Now, there are a couple of, this is a strategy I thought of, there are a couple of outgoing Republican politicians. Do you think it's possible to horse trade with any of them to give them some goodies in their district, make them heroes on the way out in order to get them to vote? and go around Cinema and Manchin.
Okay,
Someone who's
I'm
gonna
not so
retire.
much. I'm not so much in favor of that. But what I'm in favor of doing
Mhm.
is finding Republicans who are weak in their districts, in their states, in 2022.
Mhm.
Okay, and attempting to negotiate with them for certain provisions in the
Mhm.
reconciliation bill that would benefit their states. If they were very, very worried about democratic challenges in their states, and by the way, there are a number of Republicans up in 2022 who are very worried, who are on the cusp, and they might be tradable.
That's the thing. You could definitely trade with them.
I don't know if you could definitely trade with them, but I think it's worth trying. But I think the basis of the strategy has to be the coercion of Manchin, and Cinema. Each week, you run those ads against them. Each week, you put that bill on the floor, and you run ads against them. Things get more and more negative for them in their states.
Now, what happens if Manchin decides I'm going to become a Republican?
If he decides he can become a Republican, then he goes over to the Republican side, and the Democrats lose the Senate, and they make that an issue in 2022. They're running against the Republicans. That if Manchin becomes a Republican, then the Republicans voted down that bill. Then
Mhm.
the Republicans have the responsibility. It's strange. Even though every Republican is against the bill, nobody is blaming them right now for voting against the reconciliation bill
Yes.
because the Democrats have the power to pass it in their own party, or so everybody sees. So therefore, what's going on is that they're sitting there and they're blaming Biden, okay, and they're blaming Manchin and Sinema.
Now you can blame Manchin and McConnell in the same breath.
Now you can blame all of the Republicans, including Manchin and Sinema,
Yes.
who would also consider switching parties. They probably both would switch parties at the same time.
Oh, very possibly.
Okay, so the point is, it's a better situation for Biden and for the Democrats to have the Republicans suddenly taking over the Senate and be in a position to get blamed for the poor performance than to have the situation the way it is now with the Democrats in supposed control, but not really having control.
Definitely. Am I blocking her? There's another one. I just want to make sure I don't block the real Lana. Am I timing that one out?
Okay, well, if real Lana runs into trouble, she can always give you a quick call,
No, that's true.
and then you'll know she's the real Lana.
No, because this one is also orange. That's why I was confused.
It's also orange, but it's not the same shade of orange.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay,
Into timeout you go.
right.
Okay. Since I'm in here, I'm gonna text Jackie and see if I can get him to come in and do the moderation.
Okay, that would be a big help.
But yeah, I think I like that strategy. You use I think it's also a fight on all fronts strategy. You run the ads against Manchin and Sinema. You try to trade with the Republicans who are going to be weak in 2022, and you continue to put the bill up on the floor and do whatever you can to pass these bills. That's fighting on all fronts because you're looking at a multi-pronged approach to getting this bill passed. The goal at the end of the day is to get the bill passed, no matter who votes for it.
That's right. That's right. But it's not just to get the bill passed. It's to get a good bill passed that makes the people happy with you, that makes them grateful that you delivered. It's got to be a bill that actually delivers. The problem with this $1.75 trillion bill is that it doesn't really deliver. And the reason why the strategy I talked about is also good is because it gets rid of the basic infrastructure bill. Okay, in other words, what you say to Manchin and Sinema is, look, If you're not going to back the reconciliation bill anyway, then we don't have any reason to stay with your basic infrastructure bill. What we're going to do at this point is vote against your basic infrastructure bill. We're going to vote it down in the House, and we're going to put the good parts of it and other infrastructure parts that we want into the 3.5T bill. That's what we're going to do.
Exactly.
Or
We know
even
what-
better, okay, or even better. In fact, I'm not sure it's practical to do that because the reconciliation bills, the reconciliation bill framework has already been written, and that framework caps it at 3.5T. So there would be no room for the infrastructure stuff. But the following would be possible. Since the infrastructure bill is a piece of crap anyway, what you do is you have the progressives in the House vote down the infrastructure bill at this point. And then what you do is you put up a new infrastructure bill.
Mhm.
And you load that down with stuff that's good for Manchin and Sinema and people in their state.
Mhm.
Okay, as well as what's good, a whole bunch of good things for people, okay, in other states too.
Yes.
And then you put that down on the floor and get the Republicans to vote against that again and again. And every time they do, you run ads in their state. In other words, you apply the same strategy to them. And what you do is you make it clear that you're going to keep pushing until they pass the current reconciliation bill. And then, if they're good boys and good girls, you'll consider using the first reconciliation bill in the new fiscal year to pass an infrastructure bill that's really good in their states. But you also make it clear that if they don't vote for the 3.5T bill now, but what's going to happen is that the basic infrastructure bill is going to be defeated, and the new bill is taking out the $600 billion in giveaways to their donors that are in the current infrastructure bill.
Consider million, but yeah.
No, it's a $1.2 trillion bill. Roughly 600 billion of it is a fairly legitimate stuff, and the other 600 billion is
right,
giveaways, okay, to donors, basically.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you tell them, we're going to vote this down. If you don't pass the reconciliation bill immediately at the 3.5T level, we're going to vote this down. It's going to be gone. And we're going to kill it. Okay? We're just going to kill it.
So do you think now in the current state we're in, we need to kill both bills and make it so they don't?
In the current state we're in,
Yes.
okay, what I would do is I would talk to Manchin and Sinema, and I'd say, look, in other words, the House people should say, and since Nancy Pelosi won't do it because she's not really with them because she's a freaking Republican,
Mm-hmm.
what you do is you have Jayapal go to Manchin and Sinema, have a meeting with them, okay, and tell them, look, this is what's going to happen. When that basic infrastructure bill, the BIF, goes on the floor of the House, we're going to defeat it. It's going to be gone. It's going to be gone for good, along with the $600 billion you set aside for your donors.
Mm.
The only way you can stop that is to vote for the $3.5 trillion bill now.
Now, do you have to get him on the record as saying that publicly? Because he could say anything in closed doors.
No, you don't have to get him. It's self-enforcing. If he and Sinema don't come out for the reconciliation bill at this time, what you do is you put forward a date certain. Okay, you say to them, by November 15th, well, the only problem with this is you still have Nancy Pelosi, so maybe you have to run a vacate the chair operation against her. But maybe she'll go along with you at this point. Okay? What you do is you tell Nancy Pelosi, put the basic infrastructure bill on the floor of the House now. We're going to vote it down. And we're going to do that by a date certain. Let everybody know that the date that's going to be put on the floor is November 15th. Without fail, no matter how much support there is for it. If by November 15th, if Manchin and Sinema have not withdrawn their opposition to the 3.5T reconciliation bill, we're voting that basic infrastructure bill down for good. It's not going to pass in the House. It's going to be gone. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board.
Well, that makes sense. Well, that's true. That makes some sense. Yeah. But so you allow them. So it's basically a trade. You let Manchin and Kirsten Sinema get what they want for their donors if they give everybody else what they're supposed to get, the free college.
Oh, that was supposed to be the deal in the first place.
That's true.
But they spent the whole summer breaking the deal. So now what you do is you hold them to the deal.
Exactly. You hold them to the deal. Do you remember Joe Manchin came out before the Democrats had the Senate and said, we need to pass a $4 trillion infrastructure bill?
I remember.
I guess he didn't mean it.
He probably meant it. He probably just had in mind a lot more goodies for his donor friends.
Why not tell them every time they vote against it, you raise the $15 to $16, and then the next time to $17.
Oh, that's a great idea. Okay, so Bonnie had a great idea.
What's she got?
Okay, the great idea is with the reconciliation bill. When you pass it out of the House the first time, you include the $15 an hour in it. Well, of course, first that has to be preceded by talking to Chuck Schumer and say, you better fire the parliamentarian right now. Because we have stuff coming she's certainly going to decide against, and we don't want a biased person to be there as the parliamentarian at that time. So you fire her right now. So that has to be done first. So
we have to respect the parliamentarian.
Screw that. That doesn't cut any ice with anybody in the country. It's an idiotic thing. It's an utterly idiotic thing.
Exactly. Mitch McConnell fired his.
You fire her right now. No, it wasn't Mitch McConnell who fired his. It was the
Republicans, though.
Yes, I think it was Bill Frist, who was the majority leader at that time, if I recall.
And they wanted a bill, and they fired the parliamentarian to get it.
They fired the parliamentarian to get it when they found out the parliamentarian was unfriendly. The Democrats can always point back to that as the precedent. That's the precedent. They're only following precedent. They had a parliamentarian unfriendly to their interpretations. They hired a staff member that was friendly to their interpretations. That's completely legal. The Republicans did it in 2001 or whenever the date was that they did it.
Exactly.
So you say something like that. Okay, so to go on with Barney's idea, what you do is you put the $15 an hour bill in that reconciliation bill. Okay, remember, that doesn't cost anything.
No.
That actually saves money. It has a budgetary impact, which actually saves money. So it helps the neutrality of that bill for the fiscal responsibility crazies like Joe Biden. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's, really a good move from their standpoint. Okay. If they vote against it, the first time around, then what you do is you run the ads in their state, that they voted against it. Then you amend the reconciliation bill. You very quickly amend it. You change the minimum wage from $15 an hour to $16 an hour. When they vote against that, you run another ad in their state.
$17.
Then you come back the third time, you raise it to $17 an hour.
That makes sense. So then, do you make a deal with them at the end of the day? If they say, fine, we'll go back to 15, do you make
No.
that deal? Or
No,
you say,
no,
well, now it's going to stay at 17, and if you continue, it's going to go up to 18.
that's what I do.
So you say, you lost your chance on the 15.
Yeah, you lost your
Yeah.
chance on the 15 when you voted against it in the first reconciliation bill, in the American Rescue Plan. Now we're not taking no for an answer. And it's going to get worse and worse for you with the ads in your state if you don't agree to that right now.
Look, there's some pretty decent ads you can run against Manchin. How he owns a lot of businesses, and he's trying to.
Oh, you can run all kinds. People have been running ads against him now. Some centrist Democrats have been running ads against him
Oh,
now.
there's a lot you can hit him at. But the
It's
specific
pretty tough ads.
they are, but I think they could even go further. He owns a hotel. He owns an oil rig. You run the ad that says he doesn't want to pay his workers more, so he wants to make sure the minimum wage stays lower. You
Right.
attack him on that. You say this is a personal interest of Joe Manchin to keep more profits for himself.
Yeah, right. And when he says, I don't care about that because I'm not going to run for the Senate again. I'm going to go back to West Virginia and I'm going to become the governor of West Virginia again. Then what you say, the obvious response is, by the time we finish with you with these ads, you're not going to be able to run for dog catcher in West Virginia.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That's hardball. That's the hardball you need to play for this. Okay, but apart from that, absolutely the bottom line that has to be done by the progressives right now is to tank these two bills. If the leadership is unwilling to go with the strategy I specified, you tank these two bills and then you wait for the leadership to come to you. Because at that point, they're facing terrible defeat in 2000, okay, in 22. And as for the progressives themselves, they can say to their constituents, look,
Yes.
they wanted us to pass a piece of crap with little crumbs for you, but lots of dough for donors. And you did not elect us to pass something like that. You elected us to pass things like paid family leave and $15 an hour, okay, and the ability to unionize and expansion of Medicare. And you just go through step by step all the things they elected you to do, which were in a $3.5 trillion bill. Okay, at that point, who would get soaked in the election in 2022? It wouldn't be the progressives, who are mostly in safe districts anyway, except for Katie Porter, perhaps, is not in the safe district. All the others are in safe districts.
Yes.
So certainly centrists would not be effective in challenging them, because they would just say about the centrists that they would line up with the centrists and pass the crumbs bill.
Well, yeah. If people get a choice between Republican and Republican light, they will vote Republican every time.
Okay, there are a few other things, okay, that I want to go over that are very important here. Okay. There's something that came up today that happened here today. I'm going to share this. Okay. This was a little Twitter exchange.
Sure.
I'm going to share the Twitter exchange. Okay. Okay. So Fadl Kaboub, am I sharing this yet? No, am I?
No, it's not. You have to add it in.
Yeah, I know I have to add it. Do not worry. I am on top of it. Here we go. Okay, so Fadl tweeted, and that's why I would use a water pistol to fight the forest fires. Okay, this was a response to President Biden.
No, oh, I apologize if there's any noise. There's people doing fireworks outside of my house for some reason.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, that's fine. So, I hope you're seeing this one. Are you seeing the right one? Yes, you are.
Yes.
You're seeing the tweet. Okay, I'm going to put this up there alone so people can see it better. But they'll still be able to hear us, of course.
Right.
President Biden said, "My plans are fiscally responsible. They are fully paid for. They don't add a single penny to the deficit."
Mm.
And Fadl very sarcastically said, and he was right to be sarcastic, he said, "And that's why I will use a water pistol to fight the forest fires."
That's a good one.
Which was, by the way, absolutely correct. And then he followed that up with, "And water pistols are only made available to families with a combined annual income of less than 300K. Ultra-rich families and oligarchs can buy their own space shuttle tickets to Mars." So that was brilliant. Okay, there was another thread that followed that, but that thread did not contain my reply, okay, because I
Quote tweeted, quote retweeted.
I quote tweeted, right? I quote tweeted. So what I said is, fiscal responsibility is policy intended to achieve public purposes, e.g., full employment, price stability, hashtag Medicare for all, spending enough to end the climate emergency. That has zero to do with fully, quote, paying for, unquote, things, not running deficits, or not adding to, quote, the debt, unquote. I know Biden said the deficit, but that's because he doesn't know what he means. What people are worrying about is adding to the debt. They don't give a damn about adding to the deficit. It's just the debt. He had confused, the debt, okay, and the deficit in his statement. Yeah. Then I said, hashtag Biden has no clothes. Okay, and then I also said, if I can get to it here, I said, at POTUS is being fiscally irresponsible because he will not give up old ideas about what fiscal responsibility is. Biden is clothing his actions in a pile of poo. So that's what I said. What I was really doing there, though, what I was saying to Fadl, who certainly realizes what I was saying, is you made a mistake. You weren't questioning his framing. It was cute to say, and that's why I will use a water pistol to fight the forest fires. That's awfully cute. But the point is, he still got away with claiming that fiscal responsibility was what he said it was. What my two tweets were designed to do in this instance was to flatly question his concept of fiscal responsibility.
Right.
Real fiscal responsibility is policy intended to achieve public purposes. It is not a policy that is intended not to add a penny to the debt or not to run deficits or to fully pay for things. That has nothing to do with public purposes. It's entirely irrelevant. So I made that point, so I'll stop sharing, at this point. But that brings home something else. And what that brings home is the idea that Biden is still captured by the old fiscal responsibility austerity rhetoric. And why is he still captured by this? Because he's still getting BS come over his desk like the following.
Well, this is what happens when you listen to economists like Larry Summers and people like that.
Not just economists like Larry Summers and people like that. Yes, it is Larry Summers and people like that. But what it also is people like the following that I'm about to share. Okay. Specifically, here is something that was just released just a couple of days ago by the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. Okay, let's see. Which one was that? What does the national debt mean for America's future? This is from them. And we're going to go quickly through this.
Okay.
What they're talking about here is there's a backdrop of a poor fiscal outlook. We have a range of complex, unprecedented health, economic, and societal challenges. And the fiscal outlook was irresponsible and unsustainable to begin with. Yes, it was, but not for the reasons they think. They go on, building a brighter future for the next generation is an essential priority for America, and this high cost of this crisis only makes that challenge more urgent. Once we have emerged from the pandemic, it will be more important than ever for our leaders to address our fiscal outlook and manage our debt to ensure that America is more prepared, better positioned for growth, and able to meet our moral obligation to future generations. And then they go further with additional resources, and they start, giving you various things to click upon. But that's the basic point. We are in a fiscal crisis. We have a problem because we have this huge debt, which we have to do something about, by managing the debt. But in other words, the debt is an important problem that we have to manage, and they say at the same time, they will inherit an unwelcome, our grandchildren, and costly legacy in the form of America's $27 trillion and rising national debt. And then they link you to the next thing I'm going to share, which is their recent count on the debt clock. Okay. Now, remember, from the MMT standpoint, the amount of the debt clock is also the amount of the savings that have accumulated in the non-government sector, because those debts are assets and they are held by non-government actors, foreign governments, and various domestic entities, as well. What is the national debt today? It isn't 27 trillion, folks, as they just said. They're not watching their own clock. It's 28,908,896,520. I can't read it fast enough to keep up with it. You're getting the picture, though. It's nearly 29 trillion. By a few days from now, it will be at 29 trillion, not at 27 trillion. And they say that's $87,468 per person for every single person in America. Folks, no, it's not. They got that figure by dividing the 330 million population into the almost $29 trillion. Who is it who incurred that debt? Who is it who sold those debt instruments? Who was the contract actually made with? It was made with the federal government. It wasn't made with each person in America. It's not the responsibility of any person in America. It isn't my responsibility. It isn't your responsibility. It is up to the government to make those payments when they fall due. And it doesn't matter how large those payments are. The government of the United States can always make those payments. And the reason why is that the government of the United States has the authority to create the money to pay those debts when they fall due, no matter how large they are. In fact, I've had lots of other live streamings
Yes.
dealing with overt congressional financing as a way to pay the debt off, and also the $100 trillion platinum coin as a way to put enough money into the purse, the public purse, the Treasury spending account, that more than enough money will be there to pay off the national debt, each element of the national debt, as each of the debt instruments falls due. So their whole shtick, all the complexity, they talk about the structural factors, the aging baby boomers, the tax system, our debt over time is going up and up. It's projected over time. The only reason why this situation exists is something that this lying bunch of bandits will not talk about, and that is the willingness of the Congress and the willingness of the executive to provide for the payment of the debt instruments as they fall due. They each have the power. The Congress has the power to do it through overt congressional financing. The president has the power to do it by minting the $100 trillion platinum coin, or if he wants to make it 50 trillion, that will do it also. The point is, branches of our government have the power and authority right now to completely get rid of the political problem of the national debt. Now, of course, the MMTers, of which I am one, will tell you that it doesn't matter how high the debt goes. And I agree. As a financial or economic matter, it doesn't matter how high the debt is. It doesn't matter how high the debt to GDP ratio is. The government can always handle it. It's a non-problem from the economic or financial point of view. But it is not a non-problem from the political point of view because of idiots like this, because of liars like this. But they're going to go on lying. They've got all the money they need. That foundation was endowed with $1 billion by Peter G. Peterson. They can go on for years and years talking about the national debt and why it matters and why it's irresponsible to add to the debt, when by now they know very well that the Congress will act appropriately and the president will act appropriately. The debt will be gradually paid down to nothing over a 30-year period. In other words, they know no such problem exists. They continue to lie about it. They continue to publicize their lies. And Biden continues to read or hear about this BS. And this gets into his calculations. So he thinks he has to be careful to be fiscally responsible.
Yes.
What he calls fiscally responsible and what I just indicated is actually fiscal irresponsibility, not fiscal responsibility. And so we have this political and messaging battle to fight over the debt. And that has to be part of the considerations of the progressives in Congress, too. It's time they, including John Yarmuth and Bernie Sanders, came out and called Biden out for his fiscal irresponsibility, for the fact that he made these things that should be done for the American people contingent on paying for these things, when there was no reason to do that at all. There was no reason. There was no compulsion to do that. It didn't have to be done in that way. You could have taken up the spending program completely apart from the taxing part of it. Put only the spending in this particular reconciliation bill and said, you'll take up the tax bill later. There's nothing forcing you in a single reconciliation bill to take up the tax part.
Definitely.
This reconciliation bill, the second bill, should only have been about spending, not about taxation. That
Yeah.
should have been kept for a separate fight in a separate bill.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a 10:30 show appearance. I have to get off here, but I've enjoyed talking with you.
I've enjoyed talking with you too, Shane. I'm sorry I didn't give you much chance to talk, but this time
I understand.
I just had to get this all off my chest because it's so stupid. The whole thing is so stupid.
It
I
is.
had it up to here. I've had it up to here with lily-livered people that we elected to Congress, that we gave so much money to and gave so much help to, that we got into Congress, and these people are refusing to do what we elected them to do. Out of what kinds of fears, I don't know.
Definitely.
Okay.
Anyway,
Before you go, can you get rid of the newest version of Lana Del who says, Joe, I need help?
Joe, I need it. Let me see here.
That was at 9:30. Maybe you did get rid of that person already since it's.
Oh, I did get rid of her. I don't think that's Lana. That's definitely not Lana. Anyway, yeah, I got rid of her already. Okay. Bye, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Shane. I appreciate it. So Shane is gone. He's got a 10:30 thing he has to do. So we will stay and we'll do what we can here. We do have the trolls, but I can easily look over what they have to say. It isn't a problem. So, okay, I hope I went through well the outrageous things, okay, which the Democrats have done and which the progressives failed to counter. That was really a very, very poor performance, okay, on the part of the progressives. And I've outlined why here. I hope you understand why. I hope you understand what they should be doing now. Carmen says Biden is going to give the fascists the House and Senate in 2022 because he has no balls. Holly Horn says, looks that way, Carmen. Holly, I hope I'm wrong. So Biden better grow a spine. Listen, we've been calling for these centrists to grow spines since, I don't know, since 2009. We've been calling for them to grow spines. They never grow spines. What we have to call on them to do is stop the evil. What they're doing is evil. That's what they're doing. And we need to impress upon them that we think they are doing evil. Why do we think they're doing evil? Because again, they are opening the way for the fascists. Trump's original election was due to Obama's failure in his administration, Obama's continuing failures, and then the ultimate failure of all to decide to run Hillary Clinton. Were they crazy? Were they deliberately trying to search for the most unpopular Democrat and run that person so Trump could win? What was that about? What was that about? There's a bunch of Lana trolls I'm getting rid of here. And Judith J. Van Ryzen says, thank you, Joe, for your smarts. Thank you, Judy. And Holly Horn says, Carmen, if only it worked. Then there was another Lana troll who came in. Holly says she's back. Carmen says, or better yet, progressives against obstructionist Democrats and faux-gressives. And Holly Horn says, oh no, that's another Lana. Holly Horn, can you call Dr. Joe and let him know? And Carmen says, Holly Polter trolls. And Holly smiles at Carmen, and Carmen says Halloween is bringing out the ghouls. Lana says, Dr. Joe, I need some help with my resume, trying to get another job. Who's John Yarmouth? John Yarmouth is the chairperson of the Budget Committee in the House. He's just announced that he's going to retire after the end of his time, and that's a shame because he is the only person in the House who not only has announced but publicly that he's interested in MMT, but who has gone to the public with a variety of statements, basically teaching people MMT doctrine on popular channels, using popular language, Anyway, he is the opposite number of Bernie Sanders in the House. It's his responsibility. It was his responsibility, along with Bernie Sanders, to write the framework for the reconciliation bill, which is what everybody is operating within right now. It was a framework constructed by Bernie in the Senate and John Yarmouth in the House. Holly says, I heard the original ask was 7.5 trillion. It depends on who you're talking about. The original ask of the progressives was 10 trillion, actually. Carmen, good comment. Chop off the head and the corrupt body will die, so to speak, Joe. Well, I think a lot of the body would have become uncorrupted if Nancy Pelosi wasn't there to keep them corrupted. But that's another issue entirely. And Carmen says, so no more snake speakers, right, Holly? And Holly says, exactly, Carmen. Carmen says, well, I don't even want the damn bill to pass now because of that stupid report, $600 transactions, BS. That shit pissed me off royally. I didn't see that report. Holly says, it's so diluted now, Carmen. Holly, I hear it's going to profit corporations more than anything anyway. Holly says, Carmen, that's why they did it, right, Holly? And they're whittling out anything for the public purpose more and more each day. Carmen says, anyone else noticed how much and how many products are having MSG in them again? I noticed it yesterday. They even put it in sunflower seeds. Agolf's policy result, one of his policy results. Carmen says, I'd like to donate my foot up in Biden's $1 And Carmen says, spot on, Shane. That's how you hardball negotiate. And Lana says, I am here just listening. I've drove down to the H where my son was, on my way back home now. Thanks for coming, Lana. You see all these trolls who have been kind of taking your place. I'm glad you're here. I'm very glad you're here, Lana. And I hope you're feeling better. And there are more trolls who I will skip. And Carmen says, how I wish someone would sink Joe Manchin's yacht and booby trap Big Losie's fridges. And Holly Horn says, me too, Carmen. And Carmen says, smiling ear to ear, Holly. And Holly says, grinning, Carmen. And then we get some interventions from more troll types who we know are trolls by what they're doing. Carmen says, well, the Petersons can try to feed me all the guilt trips they want. They'll just be practicing a hashtag, learn MMT. Holly Horn says, exactly, Joe. Quote, we don't have the money, unquote. Carmen, not pay go, says Holly. Not pay go. Absolutely not pay go. Carmen says, I'll tell the Petersons as well. As long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. Carmen says, love the Hulk appearance tonight. Yeah, I felt a little frustrated tonight because when Lisa had to leave unexpectedly at the last minute because of a little problem in her family, I was disappointed that she wasn't going to be on along with me because we were both prepared, I think, to go full Hulk tonight. So I had to make up for her not being here. And Holly says, take care, Shane. Carmen says, HRC is why Julian is in prison. Yeah, she is. She is, absolutely. If she weren't running and taking a hard-ass position against Julian, probably the Biden administration would have dropped the whole thing at that point. He was on the point of dropping the whole thing. Holly Horn says, or Schumer. Carmen says, no, Joe. Quote, learned MMT to the Petersons' newer hashtag. Carmen says, I miss Lisa. Well, I'll certainly tell her that you missed her, Carmen. Okay, I don't see any more comments, so I think we have reached the end. Thank you all for listening to my ranting and ravings tonight. I had a good time with the ranting and ravings. I hope you'll share this widely I think it was actually a good stream from start to finish. And please help as much as you can with the sharing. Okay, especially since some of us were not very active today. I think I must have been getting some competition from some quarter or other. So again, thank you very much for coming, and I'm going to say good night. Good night.